Today, we are diving headfirst into one of the most intense and honestly morally complicated stories in the entire book of Genesis. This is way more than just some ancient story. It's a raw, unfiltered look at family honor, a terrifying deception, and a shocking act of revenge that just spirals completely out of control. So let's start with this question right here, because it's at the very heart of everything we're about to see. Two brothers, pushed to their absolute limit by rage, are going to have to answer it. As we walk through this chapter, verse by verse, just keep asking yourself, at what point does the search for honor turn into something else? Something much, much darker. Okay, let's get right into it. The whole story kicks off with a single, fateful encounter. It's just one moment in time that's about to trigger an absolute avalanche of violence and grief. So we start with verse 1. Just picture it. Dinah, Jacob's daughter, she's curious. She just wants to get out and meet some of the local girls. It's this picture of total youthful innocence. And then verse 2 just shatters everything. Shechem, a local prince, sees her, takes her, and brutally assaults her. It's this jarring cut from a bright, open scene of curiosity to a dark, violent act of pure power and violation. Now, this is where the story gets really, really weird. Verse 3 tells us that after this horrific act, Shechem's soul is drawn to Dinah, that he loved her. But verse 4 shows us exactly what that love means to him. He doesn't apologize, he doesn't show remorse, he just goes to his father and says, "Get me this young woman as a wife." It's not a proposal, it's a demand to own what he's already broken. All right, so what happens next? This private tragedy is about to explode into a full-blown public crisis. What we get is this incredibly tense negotiation that's just fueled by grief, barely contained rage, and a pretty desperate offer to try and make things right. And we see three totally different reactions play out. First, in verse 5, the father, Jacob, hears the news and says nothing. Can you imagine that chilling silence? A father just holding his fury like a coiled spring? Then, in verse 6, Hamor, the prince's father, shows up to negotiate. And then verse 7, Dinah's brothers come in from the fields. The second they hear what happened, their grief just boils over into this white-hot rage. See, for them, this isn't just a personal tragedy. It's a public disgrace to their entire family. So, Hamor makes his pitch. In verses 8 through 10, he basically lays out this massive business proposal. He's saying, look, let my son marry your daughter, and let's just merge our people. We can intermarry, we can trade, we can all get rich together. He is literally trying to smooth over an act of brutal violence with a business opportunity. Then Shechem himself speaks up. In verses 11 and 12, he makes this desperate personal plea, and he essentially writes them a blank check. He says, name your price. Any dowry, any gift, I don't care how high it is, I'll pay it. Just give me Dinah. He really thinks this whole thing can be bought and paid for. And this is where the entire story pivots. The brothers, they hear these offers, and a cold, dark idea starts to form. They're about to take complete control of the situation with a deadly and incredibly deceptive plan. Okay, so the most important part of verse 13 is that single chilling word, deceitfully. They are lying through their teeth from the very start. Then in verse 14, they lay out their trap, and they disguise it as a religious rule. They say, we can't let our sister marry an uncircumcised man. It would be a total disgrace to us. It sounds reasonable, right? Even pious, but it's all bait. And here is their shocking condition, laid out in verse 15. We'll agree, but only if every single male in your city gets circumcised. Verse 16 then offers this sweet reward. Do this, and we'll become one big happy family. But verse 17 delivers the sharp ultimatum. If you refuse, we're taking our sister and we're gone. It's an all-or-nothing demand. The trap is officially set. Let's just pause on that for a second. This isn't a small request. For adult men, this is a painful, physically incapacitating procedure. They'd be completely vulnerable for days. The brothers are asking an entire city of warriors and workers to voluntarily disarm themselves and go through this, all for one marriage. I mean, the audacity is just breathtaking. And, unbelievably, the trap works. Verses 18 and 19 show Hamor and Shechem are thrilled with the deal. They go to their city gates, and as we see from verses 20 to 23, they sell this painful idea to their people, not based on honor, but on pure greed. They argue, hey, their livestock, their property, it'll all be ours. And verse 24 shows the result. The whole city agrees. Every single man undergoes circumcision. So now the city is completely vulnerable. The deception is complete. And the brothers, well, they're about to spring their trap. What comes next is swift, it is brutal, and it is absolute. This right here shows the cruel genius of their plan. Verse 25, on the third day, that's the day the men of the city would be at their absolute weakest, sick with fever, in the most pain, and that's when two of the brothers, Simeon and Levi, just walk into the defenseless city, they draw their swords, and they kill every single man. Just let that sink in. This was not a targeted assassination. This was a wholesale slaughter. Not just the prince and his father, not just the soldiers, every single male. This wasn't justice, this was annihilation. Verse 26 gives us the details on the primary targets. They execute Hamor and Shechem and get Dinah out of the house. Then, verse 27 shows the other brothers arriving, and when they see the carnage, they don't stop it. They join in, plundering the very city that defiled their sister. The devastation is total. Verses 28 and 29 just list the spoils, all the livestock, all the wealth. And then, the most chilling part, they take all the women and children captive, stripping the city of everything and everyone. The violence is over, but the story isn't. We end with this tense, chilling confrontation back at the family camp between a terrified father and his two completely unrepentant sons. Now look closely at Jacob's reaction in verse 30. He doesn't condemn the morality of the massacre. He condemns the strategy. His response is pure pragmatic fear. "You've made us a target," he yells. "We're outnumbered. They're going to unite and wipe us out." He's worried about survival, not what was right or wrong. And then we get it. The final haunting line of the chapter. Verse 31. The brothers' only defense, their entire justification for all of it, is delivered as a single searing question. Should he treat our sister like a harlot? For them, the answer was no. And in their minds, any action, no matter how brutal, was justified to restore her honor. And here it is, laid out side by side. You've got two completely irreconcilable positions. Jacob sees a practical disaster that threatens their very existence. His sons, on the other hand, see a righteous, if brutal, defense of their family's honor. There's just no middle ground here at all. And that brings us right back to where we started. This story, as you can see, offers no easy answers. A horrific crime was committed against Dinah, but then a far greater atrocity was committed in her name. So I'll leave you with this to think about. In this brutal cycle of violence, where all the men are talking about honor and fear, and the one woman at the center of it all never gets to say a single word, was justice ever truly served?